We as a society don't trust that people in charge in a free country won't try to legislate something that will constrict people's freedoms.
Hey guys, welcome to the channel. In this clip, Neil deGrasse Tyson absolutely owns Ben Shapiro. Not with shouting, but with calm surgical precision. Shapiro tries to weaponize science against trans people, and Tyson flips the whole thing back on him. You'll want to see how this unfolds. Now, let's get into it.
It seems like the left is militating against the advent of science. One of those areas is the area of transgenderism. The argument that is typically made by gender theorists is that gender is entirely separate from sex. You've seen the argument made that it makes no difference on average if men are stronger than women are, and that if we were to allow transgender women to compete with non-transgender women, then this would somehow not disadvantage biological women. And this seems to me absolutely ascientific, that if we're actually going to have a discussion about gender and sex, that should be based in data, which suggests that mammals are in fact binary in terms of their sex, unless you have intersex birth defects typically, or genetic defects.
I'm happy to opine on this. This only matters because today we segregate nearly all sports by gender. Otherwise, why do you even give a shit what someone identifies with? That we live in a free country, and with consenting adults and people free expression of who and what they are.
Man, on an adult level, I agree with you. I think it does matter what you teach your children.
That's what I'm saying. And so there's the matrix of what you are biologically, how you express yourself, who you choose as a sexual partner. If we actually live in a free country, as we tell ourselves, people's freedom to behave in any of those ways should not concern you at all. Nor are they requiring that you behave that way. Okay?
Well,
this is for their own freedoms, because we live in a free country. Now, what is unresolved here is, what do you do with sports? It's unresolved. And I've followed that closely, and I don't see any meaningful solutions to come down off of that. We know that hormones manifest differently in different people, and there's the whole thing with steroids. Steroids are hormones, right? And we rallied against steroids in professional sports because it gives you an undue advantage. So, I've tried to think of what the future of sports would be in the world of a gender spectrum. And it may be, you don't specify whether it's a male or female sport. You just take measurements of what your hormonal balances are. And so you compete based on your hormones. I mean, this is thought I had. I mean, I don't know. I don't know where it's going to land.
The WNBA won't be in business for very long if that's the case.
It would just be, you'd have to find some way to compete people against each other if you still care that sports is an interesting activity.
Neil deGrasse Tyson hit the nail on the head when he pointed out that the real threat isn't the science itself. It's how those in power might twist it into a tool for restricting freedoms. When he says, "We don't trust that people in charge won't try to legislate something that constricts people's freedoms in the face of that information," he's laying bare a truth most commentators dance around. The fear isn't rooted in knowledge, it's rooted in power. This entire conversation isn't really about facts, it's about control. And this fear didn't just appear out of thin air. Over the last 20 years, from climate science to gender identity to public health, we've seen the same story repeat itself. Data gets weaponized as culture war ammunition. Tyson is calling that out directly, not as some abstract philosophical concern, but as a well-worn political pattern. Like he later explains, once a discovery threatens people's freedoms, it's no longer a matter of pure scientific inquiry. It becomes legislation wrapped in science-flavored moral panic. That's nothing new, it's the same recycled playbook. In fact, Tyson flips the common right-wing talking point on its head. Instead of "the left doesn't trust science," he's asking whether science can be trusted in the hands of those with political power. Both he and the host agree. The issue isn't simply whether we present the science, but what happens after it's on the table. And history proves him right. Time and again, from eugenics to McCarthy-era fear-mongering to anti-trans laws, whenever science is filtered through political fear, the result hasn't been more freedom. It's been less.
I guess the area where it does come up in a non-sports area.
Yeah, tell me, 'cause I don't know.
So it would be, you talk in your book about the education of children and teaching children about science. And right
Yes.
now, children are being taught about the quote-unquote gender spectrum, which is not scientifically based. That is a theory-based idea.
No, wait,
meaning that-
hold on. People express themselves on a spectrum. So you learn that.
That's
I don't get-
that's a social
Yeah, sure.
point, not a scientific point.
It's
Meaning we express ourselves
hold on.
based in different languages. Is that something you teach in science class, or is that something that you teach when you're teaching a language?
So whether the fact that people want to express themselves on a spectrum, on a gender spectrum, whether that fact is something you want to put in a sociology class or in a science class, maybe that remains to be determined. But it is a real fact about real society.
Well, of course, nobody's denying that people identify how they want to identify.
So
the question is, what is the relationship of that to biology? Meaning that the argument is made that trans women are women, for example. And what that seems to mean is that trans women are identical to women. Now, if people want to say trans women are not biological women, obviously that is the case. But people don't seem to want to say that, although that is obviously scientifically true. Trans women are not biological women. Biological women are biological women.
But where are you going with this? What are you trying to accomplish by asking yourself, is it science or is it not science? It's people in society.
But this is a perfect example of an area where suddenly it doesn't matter to say things that are just true. Like, why is it bad or wrong to point out?
I have another way to approach this. I care what is objectively true in the world as a scientist. But let me not say even as a scientist. I just simply care what is objectively true. And science happens to be a pretty potent path to invoke, to find out what is true. And so if people express themselves on a gender spectrum, and that is an actual thing in an actual society, if we have not fully explained that scientifically, that's an interesting frontier to study. If you want to say it's only sociological, then it's the purview of the social sciences. I don't care who studies it. It's an interesting fact about society that's worth learning about. To fight someone and say, it's not biological, it's just your this, it's real and it's there.
Well,
because it's real because it manifests.
But it is real because it manifests. But the question of how to classify manifestation is a scientific question. Meaning that, for example, there was a woman over at Brown University. Mm-hmm. She came out with a study that suggested that there was a phenomenon called rapid onset gender dysphoria, in which a member of a particular group would suffer from gender dysphoria, and this person's immediate peer group would suddenly have an onset of gender dysphoria. This paper was so controversial that Brown tried to pull it, and then was forced to reassign it later. You see this sort of treatment.
That's a different question. What you're asking now is, are there some topics that should not be studied scientifically?
Right.
And is there some taboo? And Sam Harris speaks a lot about this.
Yes.
And I think the concern is, if you study some topic that's a hot button topic and you bring scientific methods and tools to it, we don't trust, I'm interpreting here, I think we as a society don't trust that people in charge in a free country won't try to legislate something that will constrict people's freedoms in the face of that information. I think that's the fear.
Well, isn't that...
It's a fear.
I mean, and isn't that...
We don't trust our own ability to govern ourselves in the face of what could be some information relative to other kinds of information.
Isn't that a bit of a problem?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, it's not. It means it's not a free society. It's not a society of free inquiry, which I think you need ultimately. But yeah.
My general take on all of this stuff, from climate change to gender dysphoria to all of these issues, is bring out the science and then let's hash it out. I think that the problem I'm seeing on a lot of sides
is, what is your motivation?
Why?
Right?
Why does that matter?
It matters because if you have political power, you could end up creating legislation that subtracts freedoms from people who previously we're enjoying the same freedoms as you. The history of that exercise
then make a better argument.
Doesn't end well.
Well, but the history of which exercise? Bring out all the science and let's hash it out.
I'm saying if you bring out all the science and the politicians hash it out, the history of that exercise is a recipe for disaster if it involves discoveries that put people's freedom as defined in our Constitution at risk.
Neil deGrasse Tyson was spot on in pointing out that the only reason this is even a controversy is because sports are divided by gender. Strip that factor away, and most of this outrage evaporates. Everything else, just background noise. When Ben Shapiro kicks things off by claiming the left is militating against science, particularly on transgender issues, what he's really doing is using selective biology as a blunt instrument to shut down any discussion about freedom and fairness. This isn't a debate about scientific integrity. It's a struggle over control. Let's be honest, this narrative didn't emerge out of nowhere. Shapiro is leaning on the same stale fear-mongering we've seen for years, painting trans rights as some existential threat to society. He tosses out the fact that mammals are binary in terms of sex, as if that single point seals the deal. Sure, that's true. But it's also true that humans have more than 100 intersex variations that don't fit neatly into male or female. That's science too. And Tyson doesn't sidestep that reality. He builds on it, emphasizing, we live in a free country. People's freedom to behave in any of those ways should not concern you at all. That's the heart of his argument. If it's not harming you, why should it matter to you? What's happening here is a textbook bait and switch. Shapiro frames it as a sports issue, but quickly pivots into apocalyptic rhetoric about truth dying and civilization collapsing. Tyson, in contrast, keeps it grounded. He openly admits, I don't see any meaningful solutions yet. That's the kind of intellectual honesty you expect from a scientist. Then he offers a way forward. Maybe organize athletes by hormone levels. Maybe rethink how competition is structured altogether. Shapiro's counter? Dismiss the entire discussion as illegitimate. That's not reasoned debate. That's panic disguised as principle.
Now you're arguing for limitations on areas of particular study.
No, I'm arguing on we need a way to shield, we need a way to protect people's freedoms in the face of whatever gets discovered scientifically.
So
I'll give you.
I agree. I think that's what the Constitution is for, is to guard rights from.
But we're always fighting people who want rights are always fighting others who are saying they don't get the rights from the Constitution. This is a daily challenge on the progressive left. It is a daily challenge, right? Here's an example. I forgot how I ended up getting this phone call. It was some magazine that serves the gay community. And they want, I don't remember why, because they wanted my opinion on, they wanted my opinion about whether being gay was biological or mental.
Right, there's that new study that came out, this vast study.
Or psychological.
Right,
okay?
Right.
And I said, I don't care which it is. Find out what it is, fine. But the answer to that question should have no consequence on legislations or laws. Because, for example, suppose it said it's purely biological, okay? Then you say, oh, that explains it. Suppose it says it's purely psychological. What are you going to do now? You say, well, now you're going to go to the reorientation camps or whatever those are called, where they realign you because they say it's psychological rather than biological. All of a sudden, people start behaving in ways in society that want to constrict the freedom of expression of who and what people are. And that is a danger. So maybe there needs to be a line in the sand. Let science do what it does, but politicians keep us free. Yet there's so many politicians that are doing the opposite of that.
So why aren't you a libertarian?
That scares me.
I'm a libertarian. Come over here. Just
okay.
The line is right here. Just join me over here.
And there it is. Neil deGrasse Tyson didn't just respond. He went straight for the heart of the matter. This was never about the purity of science. It was about the way those in power can twist science into a weapon to limit freedoms. Shapiro showed up to score points in a debate, but Tyson showed up to defend what freedom actually means. That's the difference. If you got value from this breakdown, make sure to like the video, leave your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe so you don't miss the next deep dive. More sharp, no-nonsense conversations are on the way.